This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and this is the Alcatel OneTouch Idol 3 4.7. We've already done the 5.5 inch, which was a really lovely, well, call it a phablet Android smartphone for the price, a real nice budget price with 4G LTE for the United States, unlocked GSM phone. So now we have the 4.7 inch version, same design language, same front-facing JBL stereo speakers, but $179. Now you know you don't get quite the same specs that you do even for the 5.5 inch, despite the fact that was a budget one. How much do they have to cut out? We're going to find out now. So this is the Alcatel OneTouch Idol 3. Again, only this time 4.7 inches instead of the 5.5 inch. So for those of you who like that more handhold friendly size, you have smaller hands, you have smaller pockets, you just don't see the point of a giant fabulous phone, well, here is your 4.7 inch model. Same size as the iPhone 6 and 6S, and also the lovely Sony Xperia Z3 Mini that we reviewed. Now, unlike the Sony, which was an exception where you got really still top drawer specs in a smaller body, here the specs, along with the price, have gone down. It's more affordable phone. This is $179. The list is $199, but they're really selling it for $179. You can buy it direct from AlcatelOneTouch.com, and you can also buy it from Amazon.com. The styling is, however, the same as the 5.5 inch, and that's not a bad thing because it's a very thin, very attractive phone. I like this kind of, they call it a threaded background. It's kind of like, it's plastic, but it's matte. It looks like an, I don't know how to put it, a more complex, tasteful kind of material. Of course, you got the little flashy Idol logo going on there. It's an unlocked GSM phone, so there is no carrier branding. This will work on GSM carriers. That means T-Mobile and AT&T for the big name among the big four, not Verizon or Sprint. It doesn't have CDMA radios, which is what Sprint and Verizon use. Smaller GSM carriers, also, it's a go as well. And yes, T-Mobile folks, it has band 12. On the back, we have the same 13-megapixel camera with LED flash that we had on the bigger Idol, and we were pretty impressed with it for the price. Honestly, you got HDR, you got panorama, a couple of other nice features we'll talk about when we look at the camera in depth. On the side here, we have a power button, no surprise there, and you need one of the little pokey tools to pull out this drawer, which holds both your SIM card and a micro SD card. This is one of those phones, it's becoming more common now, where they use one carrier for both, one card carrier that is, so they can make them thinner and smaller. So likely you're probably not going to be pulling that SD card out a lot. Of course, you can plug in a USB cable. We got the standard USB, micro USB at the bottom there, and use a desktop to get to your files that way too with the USB cable that's included. This side has the volume control, and that's about it. Up front we have, again, front-facing stereo JBL speakers. Loud little bugger, although oddly in calls, voice sounded a little bit muffled through the earpiece. Now, this is the reversible kind of phone, so you can even hold it upside down if you want. So I thought that was just slightly odd there. Maybe they're just attenuating a little too much. Up top is the headphone jack. And we have a 5-megapixel camera on the front. Wide-angle lens for you selfie types who want to bring in your buddies. It's not a bad camera, as you might imagine. The megapixels aren't everything, but it's a pretty decent camera. And again, it's all pretty much the same stuff that you get on the 5.5-inch Idol 3 that we've already reviewed. Here we have Android 5.02 Lollipop, and it's a pretty clean implementation of that. They've customized the icons a little bit, but other than that, they really haven't messed with the experience too much. And that's a good thing, because this runs on the Qualcomm Snapdragon 410. It's a 1.2 gigahertz quad-core CPU that is low to mid-range at best. So this is on the slower end. It's not going to be a super-duper fast score. I'll tell you the benchmark scores on it, but suffice to say that not the sharpest knife in the drawer. That doesn't mean it's unusable. It's perfectly fine. It will occasionally have to stop and think, even something like selecting wallpapers, although for Android that can sometimes take a while, just looking to all the storage locations available for your wallpapers. As to how often this will get operating system updates, hard to say. Alcatel is still a bit young in the Android smartphone space. There's not much history to really guide us in terms of that. Phone has 1.5 gigs of RAM and it has 16 gigs of storage. Now that's nice because some budget phones only have 8 gigs of flash storage, which is really just making it tight because of course the built-in operating system and stuff take up some space. There's about 11.8 gigs available for your use on this 16 gig. Of course you can expand it with that micro SD card slot, particularly a good place to put your movies, your music files, all of your big fat chunky media files, putting it on that. The display is a 720 by 1280 IPS display, so no super high resolution here, but hey, it's $179, right? We're happy that it actually has even an IPS display. Viewing angles are okay. They're not super duper great. This is not an expensive IPS display. Our lights, of course, are making glare an issue there and making it hard to see, but it's still an IPS display, so it's not impossible to see off angle. In person, it's not that bad. They call it Technicolor. It's the same thing they did with the bigger Idol 3, and what they're doing is they're pushing the color saturation. This does not mean cinema level accuracy or something like that. Some colors actually are a little oversaturated, particularly magentas, and the rocks are a little bit too, well, magenta-y over here. And the color bias is towards the cool, which I know a lot of people are used to at this point because a lot of laptops ship that way and so do phones, so it's a pretty common thing. Not a super high resolution, so you're not going to get the sharpest text, but it's actually not that bad because this is not that big a display. You know, I think it's reasonable enough, and they're going with high DPI, or rather really low DPI settings here, so your icons look ginormous. I wish they actually were a little bit smaller. It makes you feel like you've got an even lower resolution display here. The app drawer actually looks a whole lot better there, so don't be scared by the home screen icon size on this. Phone is quite light at 110 grams, but it doesn't feel like cheesy light either. It's kind of just right light, if that makes sense. So inside, like I said, we have NFC. We have single band Wi-Fi, 802.11n, no dual band, no Wi-Fi AC. We have Bluetooth 4.0 and the usual GPS with assisted GPS inside. The 2,000 milliamp battery is sealed inside. That's considerably smaller than we've been seeing lately on Android phones, in part because most of the Android phones we've been seeing are much bigger phones, which means there's more room for a battery inside, and they're driving much bigger displays and often faster CPUs. Even the OneTouch Idol 3 5.5 inch has a faster CPU inside. So 2000 is not really as bad as it sounds, and easily it lasted me through a day of use, honestly, and that's with things like phone calls, streaming some YouTube videos, playing some music with the screen off, the usual stuff that you do, playing a little bit of games. Not the fastest CPU out there. It's great for casual games, though, and even big commercial games like Asphalt 8 are optimized to run on just about anything, so you can have a passable experience there. In terms of data speeds, we tested this on T-Mobile and AT&T's Wi-Fi. I mean, LTE networks, rather. And you can see our most recent test here is a little bit lopsided, so we're going to run it one more time after we turn off Wi-Fi. And speaking of that, settings here, as you can see, are pretty much standard, straight, vanilla Google. So call quality on the phone was okay. As I mentioned, the earpiece sounds a little bit muffled, which is surprising. Let's put it that way. Given how good the speakers sound, we'll play a video and some music in a minute so you can hear them. Reception is par for the course. It's similar to any carrier-branded phone that we've used on T-Mobile and AT&T's network here in the Dallas Metroplex. Data speeds, as you're seeing right here, for our area, right now we have an AT&T SIM, and that is just not that impressive. We often see like 45 megabit per second for download speeds. So, in part, carriers do detect devices and optimize sometimes for them when they detect the device on the network, but it's not super duper for LTE speeds. For those of you who want to know exactly what LTE bands are inside, and yes, this should work overseas, though you may not get LTE in all locations across the world because this isn't the most comprehensive list of bands I've ever seen, but you do get 2, 4, 5, 7, 12, and 17. So you get the core bands for the United States there, mostly. In terms of benchmark numbers, for those of you who are interested in that, Quadrant 12,761 on Tutu 22,293. These numbers are about 1/3 of what we would see on a flagship or higher end Android phone that's current. But if you're coming from a phone that's 3 years old, actually, these numbers will be about the same if that is a flagship phone from 3 years ago. If it was just a mid-range phone, it will actually be faster. That's how quickly these things are still improving. Geekbench 3, 468 single-core, 1400 multi-core. 3D Mark Ice Storm Unlimited, 4,351. So again, about 1/3 of the fastest phone that you can buy right now in Android land. The speakers on this little guy are raucously loud. The phone is at about, let's see where the volume is right now. Right around halfway mark. I got a max. Now, max volume just sounded overdriven and a little bit nasty without actually getting all that much louder, but I have to say that if you're playing it at half volume, that's a pretty loud phone. Might not be quite as beautifully rich and full sounding as the HTC One M9, but then again, you're paying just a fraction of the price for this phone, so wow, not bad at all. Camera interface is pretty much like the bigger OneTouch Idol 3 that we reviewed, and that's a fine thing with us because it's pretty easy, pretty intuitive. Obviously, you got your shutter button there, you got your switch to video, you got your switch to your cameras, control your flash. Actually, that's your switch to front to back cameras. And here's your settings and options. You have HDR panorama, manual mode, time-lapse, barcode scanner, beauty face, and then if you want to get to the nitty-gritty of all the rest of the basic settings, they're all there. So it's pretty fancy, actually, for an affordable phone. Focus and picture taking speed is just fine. Exposure, yeah, it's not too bad. I think it just overexposed things a little bit there. Let's give it another try. And we'll switch over to gallery so we can see how our pictures look. So there's Ernie, the bath toy, and wow, it actually looks quite good. It really brightened up the whites. There's pretty good white balance there. 13 megapixels is certainly enough to have enough detail for a usable photo for the web and a bit more. You could, in theory, even print a 5x7 if you wanted to. Low light performance, here's our, as ever, devilish cat, and it loses a whole lot of detail in a kind of dark study lit by a side window during the day, and you can see it's not handling the white fur too well there, so it's a much better outdoor one. And here's a backyard shot, and that's a good one to see how well it does with dynamic range because we got the shadows, we got the brightness of the water, that sort of thing, and it can shoot 1080p video.
Tell OneTouch Idol 3 4.7-inch, the baby Idol, 1080p video. Software stabilization only here. Let's see how that microphone does. You can shoot pictures while taking video, by the way.
So there you have it. It's not too bad looking, actually, you know. I have to say, after just reviewing the Moto X with its 21 megapixel rear camera, it's doing about as well in terms of video. However, the audio is much better on the Moto X. Of course, that again is a more expensive phone, but this obviously picked up a lot of wind noise, and it sounded a little bit hollow, but it did record my voice, and I think you could probably understand what I said just fine. And here's one more picture, the one we started out looking at. Let's look at the detail, because there's a lot of detail in the rocks and the leaves there. It's good. It's actually quite good. I mean, insanely good for the price of the phone. So that's the Alcatel OneTouch Idol 3 4.7-inch. Honestly, for the money, it's a really nice phone. I mean, just 2 years ago, we were excited to see LTE and an unlocked affordable phone, and now we kind of take it for granted already. It may not be the fastest, it may not have the highest resolution display, but it gets the job done, and it has things like, you know, all the wireless radios you'd expect, even NFC, something that does disappear from affordable phones. It's thin, it's stylish, it has the same cameras that are very capable from the bigger Idol phone. It's nice for the price. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button.